I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life. Number two, racism. The least racist person.
Never let the sexual abuser define sexual abuse. Never let the individual inflicting pain and punishment define when the pain is too much. Never let the man with the boot on your throat determine what your comfort level should be. This is simple and obvious logic to most, but there are many today who would have you believe that the recent resurgence we are experiencing in racist speech and policies from our new American president is not really racist. Here is why you should see them for what they are. In 1927, Donald Trump's father was arrested while participating in a large KKK rally in New York. Although you can't always blame the child for the sins of the father, evidence shows that children exposed to racism tend to support it at an early age. In 1973, the United States Department of Justice sued the Trump family real estate business for discrimination. The suit was based on an investigation which detailed the stories of 4 different Trump employees who confirmed that applicants for leases were screened by race. One employee revealed that Trump's father had told him not to rent to blacks. 3 doormen reported they had been instructed to turn away blacks who came to Trump buildings to apply for apartments. Donald Trump was 26 years old at the time and president of the company. In the end, Trump was required to make changes to address the transgressions of the past, including supplying weekly lists of vacancies and advertising in publications serving minorities.
NBC News has also been working on a report on the way the Trump management company allegedly discriminated against black people in rental housing. And in the course of the NBC investigation, they turned up what we've got exclusively tonight, a troubling eyewitness account from a man who worked as a rental agent at a Trump property. He says it was basically his job to do the discriminating. He says he was instructed directly to slow walk or outright reject potential tenants if they were black, because they were black. But listen to this. Listen to what he told NBC News when he was asked exactly how that instruction came to him and who was in the room while it happened.
Just take me back into that room. So you were sitting in the room and who was there? Describe the scene to me.
A black lady completed an application for an apartment in the building, a 1-bedroom apartment, as I recall. And it was a very professionally read application. It was checked and verified. There were no liens, no judgments against her. And she was calling me on a daily basis wanting to know the status of her application. And one day, Mr. Trump and his son Donald came into the office, and I asked Ms. Fred Trump what I should do with this application because she's calling me constantly. And his response to me was, you know, I don't rent to the N-word. Put the application in the desk and forget about it.
So Fred Trump used the N-word and told you we don't rent to people.
That is correct, yes.
And what was your response at that time?
Well, I was employed by them. I did what he said.
So this is the raw tape of an NBC producer in that diner, right, noisy diner, interviewing this rental agent who worked at a Trump property, and in the course of explaining basically how he says racial discrimination works.
In 1989, Trump paid $85,000 for full-page ads in newspapers in order to fan the flames of racial resentment against 5 minority kids who were wrongly accused and imprisoned for 5 years for savagely beating and raping a white woman in Central Park, New York. They were later exonerated by DNA evidence and given full financial retribution. Trump has refused to accept the fact that they were innocent and responded to the mayor's call for calm by saying, Mayor Koch stated that hate and rancor should be removed from our hearts. I don't think so. To this day, Trump has refused to apologize to the young men. In 1991, John O'Donnell, who had been president of Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, wrote a book entitled Trumped about his experience working with Donald Trump. In the book, O'Donnell quoted Trump saying, "Black guys counting my money, I hate it. The only kind of people I want counting my money are short guys wearing yarmulkes. Those are the only kind of people I want counting my money. Nobody else. Besides that, I tell you something else. I think that guy's lazy, and it's probably not his fault because laziness is a trait in blacks." In a September 2015 article in The New Yorker, Nick Baumgarten quotes Kip Brown, a black who worked at Trump's Castle Casino, as saying, "When Donald and Ivana came to the casino, the bosses would order all the black people off the floor."
Let me just tell you, I was a really good student at the best school. I'm not like a smart guy, okay? They make these birthers into the worst idiots. Why doesn't he show his birth certificate?
3 weeks ago when I started, I thought he was probably born in this country. And now I really have a much bigger doubt than I did before. He doesn't have a birth certificate, or he hasn't shown it. He has what's called a certificate of live birth. A certificate of live birth is not even signed by anybody.
I still question that he was born in the United States, do you?
I have no idea.
You don't believe him?
I'd love to believe him. You know what? I'll tell you what. I think he'd do a great
Even at
service.
this point?
Well, I don't know. Was there a birth certificate? You tell me.
A few years ago, you led the birther movement. You sent investigators out to Hawaii to find out whether or not Obama, which you said was not born here.
Well,
and
I
it
don't
turned out
know.
to not be true.
Well, I don't know. According to you, it's not true. I don't know.
He released his birth certificate.
You know, if you believe that, that's fine. I don't care.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Judge in the Trump University case. You said that you thought it was a conflict of interest that he was the judge because he's of Mexican heritage, even though he's from Indiana. Hillary Clinton said that that is a racist attack on a federal judge.
Oh, yeah, she's so wonderful, you know. I mean, here's a woman that should be put in jail for what she did with her emails, and she's commenting on this.
Well,
Let me just tell you, so first, I have had horrible rulings. I've been treated very unfairly by this judge. Now, this judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall.
So no Mexican judge could ever be involved in a case that involves you?
He's a member of a society where, very pro-Mexico, and that's fine. It's all fine. But
Except that you're calling into question his
I think he should
heritage.
recuse himself.
Because he's
Then you
Latino.
also say, does he know the lawyer on the other side? I mean, does he know the lawyer? A lot of people say
But I'm
yes.
not talking about that. I'm talking about
that's another problem.
But you're invoking his race when talking about whether or not he can do his job.
I'm building a wall. I'm trying to keep business out of Mexico. Mexico's fine. There's nothing.
But he's American. He's an American.
He's of Mexican heritage, and he's very proud of it, as I am where I come from.
But he's an American. You keep talking.
Claiming a person can't do their job because of their race is sort of like the textbook definition of a racist comment. Really disavowed. It's absolutely unacceptable.
The most recent court that blocked part of the travel ban said the order speaks with vague words of national security, but in context, drips with a religious intolerance, animus, and discrimination. It gets to the intent of what the president means by the executive order, and when he writes down, whether it be on paper or on Twitter, that it means exactly what I'm saying right now. It's a travel ban.
This is not an exhaustive listing of the many racist things Donald Trump has said and done, but they are the reasons why he was elected. His supporters knew all, most, or at least some of these facts, before they voted for him. And that is precisely why they voted for him and continue to support him today. They could have selected 16 other Republican candidates, but Trump is the only one who spoke to their racist tendencies. It was not a dog whistle, but a clarion call, and they responded as expected. Of course, few people these days want to be identified as racist, so his supporters invented cover stories. Their vote was all about low employment in the coal and Rust Belt regions. It was about bringing in someone who was a successful business person with no political experience and could change Washington. It was about having someone who spoke bluntly. The fact is that Trump has filed for bankruptcy at least 4 different times in a business that is heavily weighted in favor of the casino or house. His supporters had the choice to select Carly Fiorina, the ex-CEO of Hewlett-Packard, a Fortune 20 company that was several factors larger than the Trump organization. She was not a politician. They had the opportunity to select Chris Christie, if their real preference was someone who spoke bluntly and could be trusted to be confrontational. They did not. Employment has grown steadily from 2009 through 2016 and continues to do so today. Finally, most studies by well-respected economists have long established and consistently attributed the decline in the Rust Belt to the ascendancy of technology, and that coal will never again rise to the level of dominance it once controlled in the economy. Knowing all this, would you support someone for economic gain whose policies you know will trample on the rights and freedoms of your fellow citizens? Would you support someone and help work to implement the policies to weaken or take away the protections that were put in place to ensure minorities could vote without the barriers that were purposefully put in place decades ago to ensure they could not vote?
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
This egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Should the woman who fights off a rapist be charged with violence? Likewise, should the slave who fought off the slave master who was beating him be charged with violence? Is there a moral equivalence between the acts of the perpetrators and the resistors? Here is a trick question. If 35 to 40% of a country's population steadfastly supports an individual who espouses, practices, and supports the principles, instruments, and policies of racism, what percent of the population should be considered racist? Racism and Nazism are 2 things about which there can be no compromise, no equivocation, no equivalence. There are no shades of gray when it comes to these 2 things, only black and white.
I am the least anti-Semitic person that you've ever seen in your entire life. Number 2, racism. The least racist person.